Check, check, check. Look at that. Is this good? Cool. Okay. Hi. Welcome back to another New Ingredient Monday, where on certain Mondays that I'm trying to make every Monday, but I can't do, we explore a new ingredient so that we can up our cooking repertoire. We can try out new things, see and talk about different flavors and different textures and, like what you can use for different things. Today, the ingredient that I'm going to be using is something called Jiu Niang. And I had seen them in a lot of, I always watch travel food videos, and sometimes it's in Taiwan, sometimes it's in, different parts of China, where they'll take a spoon of this and pour it over different things. It could be desserts, it could be soups, and what it's made from is water, glutinous rice, distiller's yeast. So this little suspension with rice bits in it is supposed to be more or less used as a sweetener. And so I've seen egg drop soups for morning where they'll add a spoonful of this. I actually have, the sweetened glutinous rice dumplings that's usually filled with peanut butter or sesame or whatnot. So people have that, the tongyun, and then they'll spoon a little bit of this on top because I think it probably adds a little bit of nice kind of sweet rice flavor. I think it used to be whiter and I just kept it a little long. I had wanted to do this video a while ago. So you can see it's just a bottle with rice in some liquid. A lot of people can compare it to Japanese amazake, which we've made before, and that is a fermented rice drink, a fermented rice dessert, where it's the same thing. We cook up some rice, we put it into some water, we add some kind of a starter culture to it. And if you remember when we were making rice koji, it is a similar starter. It's kind of like a rice wine starter. To do all of this, the Koreans siki around the same process as how you would do it. Normally rice isn't sweet per se. It's not like you eat it and you're oh, this is quite sugary. But after the yeast feasts on the starches, it actually digests and it becomes sugars. It actually tastes sweet. Why would you use this over, I don't know, something like sugar? I always put my hand here and it goes through. So why would you use something like this over sugar? Is it another kind of is it coconut sugar or honey or maple syrup? Is it essentially the same thing? So what actually science articles actually say is, although this is, primarily made from white rice, white glutinous rice, when you have a yeast or a starter and it feeds off of the starches, it has enzymes that it breaks down the starches and it breaks down the proteins of the rice so that it is more digestible for people, and in fact it becomes kind of more nutritious than if you were to eat rice by itself. People say after fermented rice, it has a lot of B vitamins to it. It is supposed to help with blood pressure and a list of other all of these other goodies. Generally what I do for these shows is we're gonna taste it, we're gonna smell it, we're gonna taste it. And then we can talk about what applications or what other applications you think it might be or could be used for. That smells like rice wine. If anybody has had sake before, that definitely, it's it is actually just smelling if you had a glass of red wine, only it's not as tanniny and grapey. It's kind of sweet and it's just not as strong. Should grab a smaller spoon. Okay. I want to try it by itself first. I always think that's... Oh, dripping some of that right into... Let's try it out first. I wish I had some water. I always think it's really sweet. It's actually quite sweet. There's no sugar in this, sugar. It's just glutinous rice. and distiller's yeast and water. Sweet, quite sweet. There is like a tang to it, just I guess from the fermentation. So it's a little bit sour. There is like a flavor of like, especially if you breathe out, there's a flavor of alcoholiness to it. I'd be interested to find out what percent. So small amounts of alcohol, between 1.5 to 2%. So I think like low alcohol beers have 1.5%. So this actually does have some alcohol in it. I guess if you cook it off, they always say you can cook off alcohol, but it takes like, I think like 30 minutes over the stove to cook off alcohol. So really, I don't know. I guess you can treat it like a vanilla extract or something, where it's there. We are feeding it to the kids. Maybe that's okay. But yeah, it is quite sweet. I wouldn't say as sweet as like, you know, a tablespoon of granulated sugar. It's less sweet than that, but it's sweet. It tastes of rice wine, like a little bit alcohol-y. Just a bit of sourness to it. And then with the rice, in terms of the texture for that was actually interesting, because it no longer has like the bite of rice. It's not hard, but it's also not soft. Like the texture now is, I'd almost say even like vegetal. Like if you cooked down, I don't know, squash, or like maybe like if you cook down an apple for a really long time. There's a helicopter. If you cooked down like either a fruit or vegetable for a really long time and it was just kind of soft like that, it has that kind of a feel. It no longer tastes like a grain. Yeah. Definitely a good substitute for like anytime you need to use like sake or something like that. So now let me get some of the glutinous rice dumpling, and I'll pour this over, and then we'll see how that is, okay? So I'll say usually there's gonna be, I would usually pair this with like a ginger syrup. I mean, it would be like a ginger syrup and then maybe like a spoonful of this fermented rice bit up on top. But I thought, all right, let's just try it straight. Why not? Maybe we can put a little water in it too. Dilute it a bit. Kind of like a little bit tannic. Sorry, it's a big Italian. Yeah, I don't like it. Okay. I'm not that big of an alcohol type person anyways. Like I don't really like the additional flavor that it adds, but I do like it when it comes to savory cooking. Like I think that alcohol, especially after it's like cooked off, things that are a little bit more tannic, I think it adds like a nice rich depth in savory dishes. But in terms of kind of having it on its own, which is a bit like what I'm doing now, I kind of find the flavor is a bit too strong for me. But I can see how, yeah, again, like if I was making a more savory dish and all of the flavors are going to blend into my savory dish, I can see how something that is primarily sweet, a little bit tangy, and also a little bit funky could add to, you know, a savory dish. I'm trying to describe how like rice wine tastes like, because like what if you haven't had alcohol before? I think like you just eat rice and you like leave rice in your mouth just for a little bit, like chew it, leave it in. Sometimes you get this like aroma that is like it's sweet, but it's also like a bit fragrant, and that is just the flavor of rice. Yeah, it's really hard to describe flavors when there's no like base. Like what if you don't drink? You know, like what if that's the case? I guess the most kind of like simple thing to describe is like, you know, like a banana, a very ripe banana starts getting kind of alcohol-y, right? So in that way of how you compare like a fresh banana to a banana that's just super ripe, you know, kind of like super brown, and then you have it, and you have that kind of like, whew, you know, has a little bit of that kick. This is kind of the same thing to rice. Like when you have rice and like chew rice, like go and get some white rice, or I think white rice is more, not so much brown rice. If you can imagine the flavor of rice transitioning very much like that banana did from, you know, new banana flavor to very ripe banana flavor, that is kind of like the same kick. You know, it's a little bit funky, maybe a little bit, yeah. So that's that. So yeah, this is actually quite easy to make by yourself as well if you don't have, you know, an Asian grocery store nearby. I guess the hard part is to just find like the yeast for it. So I'll put all of the links of everything down below. In terms of, so how do you consume the Jiu Niang? Different Chinese dishes have different things, like I told you about. Most common one is to have it with these like sweetened glutinous rice dumplings, and then to put like a spoonful of this over that so that it complements and everything's sweet. I think the travel video that I saw was breakfast in Tianjin or something, where they had like an egg drop soup that, I think it didn't look to be sweet, but I don't know. And they poured, they put like a spoonful of this on top of the egg drop soup, and that was breakfast. I know one of the blogs, Walks of Life, they recommend anytime you're making a recipe that requires some sweetness, like they made bread with a little bit of this. They also did like just like braised pork or like braised fish. You know, pretty much if you use it as just a condiment that adds sweetness, you can pretty much add it to any savory dish that just needs, you know, a little bit of like a pickup. A lot of the times when you adjust seasoning for any dish, what you need to look for is salt, sugar, and then also a bit of acidity. This is going to add that sugar and that little bit of acidity as well. Plus it's digested, it's fermented, it might be a little bit, you know, better than sugar. So have a look into it, because, you know, it's kind of like two flavors in one. Let's see, I have the wiki article here of, let's see, they have Jiu Niang chicken. So putting it pretty much in a stir fry braised chicken dish. There's Jiu Niang yogurt, where you just mix this with some milk overnight and it'll coagulate the milk. It will coagulate soy milk as well. So if you don't have milk, they said sometimes this is often used very much like in the same fashion as a rice wine. So if you wanted like a low alcohol version of rice wine, usually what Chinese people use for rice wine is they mix it with like meats or something just to remove the odor. So it's quite interesting because like I know like a lot of Western people like meat for meat, like that gaminess, that like bloody gaminess, like they like that flavor. Whereas I find with a lot of Chinese people, the first thing that they do when they have meat is they put some rice wine and some ginger over it so that it takes out that gaminess. Or like sometimes like a lot of Chinese dishes, you actually cook the meat in some water first just to get rid of, you know, like a lot of like the oils and that gamey flavor first, and then you take the boiled meat, which is, it's not boiled for that long, it's just kind of an initial step, and then they stick it into, you know, whatever sauces or whatever thing that they're going to prepare it in. So it's interesting that, you know, maybe they don't like meat as much as they do. I don't know. What do have any of you tried this fermented rice kind of condiment kind of drink before? What do you all think about it? A lot of people, like last time during the fufu special, people were like, oh, it's way too hard. You definitely need to make it like much softer. And the thing is, I'm like, okay, well, I have to go to a restaurant. I have to go to, you know, like Nigeria, like maybe next trip, definitely go and try it out. But yeah, let me know if you've tried this before. What kinds of dishes do you put this in? Does it taste good? Does it really add to the flavor? Way more so than, you know, just adding sugar. I think that would be quite cool. People say after you finish brewing it, it lasts about 2 months in the refrigerator. So what I've been doing is I've been making it fresh and then I freeze it into ice cubes so that when I actually need something like, you know, a rice wine, sake, whatever, I just melt it and it goes in and it makes everything look really cloudy because that is whole food plant-based living. Cool, okay, so yeah, let me know what you guys think, what you want to eventually use it for. This video is so long again. Okay, happy New Ingredient Monday and I hope to see you all again really soon, okay? All right, bye.